Mamdani.
He's a communist. I think it's very bad for New York.
How do you respond? Are you a communist?
No, I am not.
We are in a kind of moral and political crisis. Trump's adversaries have to find ways to oppose Trump. Trump represents a lot of things to a lot of different people. I reckon I project onto Trump. The bit of Trump that I like is the bit of Trump that's like, fuck the media.
No, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
That's the Trump, because guess what? That's how I feel. So when I see him say that, I'm like, yeah, there's my guy. But there are loads of things that Trump does, believes in, that I don't believe in, of course. But what does it matter to me? I'm a guest in your country, man. Zoran Mamdani, I would say, is one of the early beneficiaries of anti-Trump sentiment, particularly in cities. And if you think about it, cities do have different requirements to areas where the population is less concentrated. It is different to live in London or New York or Paris or imagine Tokyo, San Francisco, wherever, than it is to live in a smaller community. New York City, greatest city on earth, is it? Was it? When was it? Was it under Giuliani? Was it the New York or the CBGBs and
the gangs in New York?
Oh yeah, that one.
Bene.
I like that New York.
That was.
So let's have a look at Zoran Mamdani and see if we can understand together what he represents. The new candidate for the Democrats for mayor of New York. What is New York? What is a mayor? Is it possible to have different political ideas expressed in a vast continental nation like yours? And is this the emergence of a kind of radicalism that even if you disagree with the specifics of it, i.e. that he's, I don't know, Muslim, maybe you don't like that, or maybe that he sort of seems super socialist or whatever. I don't know if he can be a devout Muslim and pro-trans. I mean, there's some contradiction there, but we live in contradictory times, like we were just watching, you know, with the Glastonbury thing. There's going to be contradiction. Even as an individual, you're fraught with and beset with contradiction and hypocrisy. So the solution is likely a return to smaller government, smaller communities. And how will a city manage that, if indeed that is the answer? Let's have a look at the phenomena of Zoran Mamdani and whether diverse political solutions are desirable, necessary even.
So when people say democratic socialist, right, and I'm curious what you think this means. I mean, do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism. And I think ultimately the definition for me of why I call myself a democratic socialist is the words of Dr. King decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. There must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. That
doesn't seem to be a problem. Now, I reckon the critics of Zoran Mamdani say, oh, yeah, but we all believe that, and, you know, but it's difficult to instantiate it.
And that's what I'm focused on, is dignity and taking on income inequality. And for too long, politicians have pretended that we're spectators to that crisis of affordability. We're actually actors, and we have the choice to exacerbate it, like Mayor Adams has done, or to respond to it and resolve it, like I'm planning to do.
Okay, fair enough. So let me know in the comments and chat what you think about that. It seems what he's talking about is sort of fairness. And now, obviously, wealth redistribution is difficult. No one wants to pay taxes. Do you want to pay taxes? Do you like it? Do you like paying taxes? Do you like it when you have to fill in all them forms and give half your money to the government so they can go and support some war somewhere, and you get the sense that they've got contracts with private groups that are benefiting from it? Have you ever walked around a hospital or anywhere really? I don't know, man. I can just see that everything's getting kind of partitioned off. Again, imagine if taxes were sort of locally distributed, like you knew, all right, so what you want half of my money, and what you're going to do here, we're going to do this, and then your kids are going to be doing. You know, we can't handle massive global models, even national ones. And frankly, why should we? Do we need to? Is there a better way? Here's Trump saying he's a communist.
What did you make of the New York Democrat primary? Mamdani.
He's a communist. I think it's very bad for New York. I don't know that he's going to get in. It's inconceivable that but he's a communist, and he's a pure communist. I think he admits it, but I can't imagine it. But let's say this. If he does get in, I'm going to be president, and he's going to have to do the right thing, or they're not getting any money. He's got to do the right thing. It's shocking that I would have assumed that I used to say we will never have a socialist in this country. No, but we'll have a communist. I mean, he's a communist and going to be mayor of New York. So I was very surprised when I said, I never heard of him. I don't know who he is.
Well, he said he's going to fight ICE. He's not going to allow ICE to...
He'll be very unsuccessful.
And he said if Benjamin Netanyahu comes to New York, he's going to have him arrested.
Oh, he's a radical left lunatic.
Trump, man. Okay, but then think about this. How do you feel when you look at Jeff Bezos's wedding, when you consider an oligarchical class, when you consider not only the impact of migration or illegal immigration on your nation and your communities, but also the idea that corporate and commercial power is able to intercede in the governing of your country? For example, do you think that America's health policies and military policies are directed by the will of the American population or by the will of massive corporations like Pfizer, Moderna, and then in the military realm, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman? I'm not suggesting that Pfizer don't do good stuff also, or that Northrop Grumman don't invent crazy great things. I'm saying that when it comes to the direction of your country, who has more influence? Individual oligarchs like, sort of Bezos, maybe there's no such thing as an individual oligarch. They are merely sort of the emergent symbol of a set of economic and commercial interests. Do you think it's oligarchs and big corporations, or do you imagine it's the electorate and voters? So is there a requirement for someone at least to represent these ideals? Now, remember, for a minute, 2015 is precisely when Bernie Sanders was the kind of, at least within the limitations of left versus right as we understood it 10 years ago, a kind of anti-Trump, an anti-bank, anti-big finance political voice. Bernie Sanders now is doing the rounds, cropping up on Joe Rogan, but he's no longer a political force. He's not going to be the leader of the Democrat Party, even by his own reckoning. What is that kind of anti-capitalism, that kind of anti-oligarchical voice? Where do you see that going? Labels like communist and fascist and Nazi, these are labels that belong to the last century, if you ask me. This is what I would invite you to consider. Do you want to unhook yourself from the system? And would you be willing to say, well, if New York want to be kind of socialist and we're allowed to run our community how we want to, who cares? We'll go visit New York. Oh, how's it going? Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. We'll see, won't we? That's what I thought your country was meant to be. Like, as it was explained to me, 50 experiments in government where, Florida's going to do it this way, Texas is going to do it that way. Everyone's going to run their own little deal. And man, I don't see how things can be centrally organized in the way they have been up to now. And it's a greater concern for a country like mine because we don't even have like a constitution or the sort of political infrastructure for the kind of freedom that is possible, I believe, in your country. But anyway, your man Mamdani, he says he ain't a communist. Here he is saying that.
The president of the United States he's had a lot to say about your campaign. He called you a communist. Because he's the president, I want to give you a chance to respond directly to him. How do you respond? Are you a communist?
No, I am not.
I like this guy. I think he's a sweet guy. Look at him. He's just like, no, I'm not. He's sort of smiling away. He's decent.
Where I'm from, who I am, ultimately because he wants to distract from what I'm fighting for. And I'm fighting for the very working people that he ran a campaign to empower that he has since then betrayed. And when we talk about my politics, I call myself a democratic socialist in many ways inspired by the words of Dr. King from decades ago, who said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, there has to be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And as income inequality has declined nationwide, it has increased in New York City. And ultimately, what we need is a city where every single person can thrive.
I like his smiley face. What if your coffee didn't just wake you up, but actually awakened you to new realms of consciousness? That's what's being promised by 1775 pea berry. Less than 5% of all beans can become pea berries. They're the Navy SEALs of coffee beans. Some of them just can't take Hell Week, which basically means your morning brew is rarer than a mainstream journalist telling the truth. Jake Tapper, you must have seen that Joe Biden was old. He was obviously old. It's grown high in the Bolivian mountains where the air is thin, the vibes are thick, and the beans basically whisper ancient truths to the winds. No acidic afterburn, no synthetic weirdness. This coffee doesn't leave you hungover in a feather boa or speaking fluent nonsense. Just bold, smooth, consciousness-activating coffee with clean energy and antioxidants so potent I drank it and remembered 3 of my past lives. Go to 1775coffee.com, use the code BRAND and get 15% off. I think he seems nice. You don't like him, do you, either of you? Well, you're Americans. What do you think, Americans?
I like
Put the Oscar Jew up, because you are a Jew. And you're addressing a Muslim.
Yeah, we're talking to a Muslim, right? Good. Look, I think really for him, it's like realities of a situation. Like, it's good to have rhetoric, right, to speak about something that you're passionate about, whether that's, you know, democratic socialism, with wealth distribution, whatever it is. But there's a reality on the ground that if he is to implement a rent freeze of some kind, there is a high likelihood that investment or people with capital who pay a majority of taxes, you know, they all say the 1% pays 50% of the taxes in New York. So what happens if those people leave and go to Florida with 0% state tax, right? No, you know, low city tax.
Yeah, but cool. So what? If that happens, that happens. That's good.
Well,
they come to Florida.
Well, then New York declines.
No, then New York declines.
New York-
Democracy.
yeah.
Democracy. New York declines. Cool. The aspect of socialism I don't like is empowering the state as if the state was God and the only way of determining right from wrong. But let's also not pretend that we aren't all paying a bunch of taxes. Where are those taxes going right now? Where are they going right now? What are the biggest departments? HHS and defense. Go on then, mate.
Yeah, it goes back to the argument, you know, even when all the bailouts happen in the financial side of things, it's just let it fail. Let it fail. So the problem is that you can't really tell who's behind the failure. So like Charlie Kirk posted a thing about all these liberal cities, and he just said, are they better off? That's a good question. Are they better off if you could see them? Or is the UK better off based on what their decisions? But then you also got to be able to let it fail. And so people loved Obama because he said all the right things. That was the when you even watched Obama argue or what people wanted, he would just tell them what they wanted. Like, oh, you want that? I'm going to do that. And people be like, yeah, that's amazing. So even if this guy is like saying all the right things, ultimately, who gets to decide?
It's interesting.
You know, where the money goes.
Who's creating all these people? Because I would say that Obama created Trump, the phenomena, the political, because precisely of 2008, because of the global financial collapse and the bailout of the banks. That's what led to the nationalism and populism. The Democrat Party, the socialist, you know, oriented party, abandoned working people in favor of high finance. From that moment on, it was necessary that there would be a new emergent political force, and it was Trump, because the left wouldn't do it. The left shut down Bernie Sanders. But if Obama created Trump, did Trump create Zoran Mamdani?
That guy was the only person in the New York City mayor's debate to say he wanted to focus on New York City. All the candidates were asked, if you could visit a foreign country, what would it be? And they all, of course, all had an answer. I think most said Israel. Great. And he said, I wouldn't go anywhere. I'd stay in New York. And like, if I want to meet Jewish constituents, I go to their synagogues, their homes or whatever, but I'd be here in New York because that's what I'm doing. I'm running New York. That's my job.
Well, he gave the right answer.
He gave the right answer. He gave the right answer at least. And he's talking, I totally oppose his program. Just
Absolutely.
To be clear. I don't think it works, but he's talking about economics.
Yep.
And everyone else is talking about foreign policy. Why is it hard to talk about economics, domestic economics?
So, we're living in a new world now, a world where the political conversation has to alter. Let me tell you this, my prayer is that the tendency is towards decentralization, towards people focusing on running their own communities democratically. And if people vote to have Mamdani as the mayor of New York, then have Mamdani as the mayor of New York and deal with the consequences of that. Because I believe it's a story that began, as beloved Jake said, in 2008, when Barack Obama didn't bail out the banks, that led to populism, that led to Trump, that led to a new type of nationalism. And that leads me to believe that you have some people that love Donald Trump, and you're going to have some people that like Zoran Mamdani. And in a free country, you would have maximum democracy, not minimum. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat. Thanks for watching the video. Have a look at this one over here, or join us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on Rumble.